There are many options out there today to monitor both remote and local infrastructure. Some of them are more complicated than others. For example, you've probably seen Checkmark in some of my videos, and I've even had comments asking about it. Checkmark is an enterprise-grade solution, and it requires some enterprise-grade configuration, which makes it pretty complicated to set up. It does have options for you to be able to do specific things with it. However, for most monitoring, if you're just monitoring some local stuff, there is an alternative to that. It's called Uptime Kuma. It's based on the Uptime robot, which is something you've also probably seen in my videos. And today what I'm going to do is take you through setting up Uptime Kuma as a Home Assistant add-on, setting up some notifications and monitoring, and just see what we can do with it. So let's get started. So as I said, this is an add-on to Home Assistant, and we'll go over to my test device, my Home Assistant Raspberry Pi 4, and we're going to go to the add-on section. So I'm going to do the shortcut for that. Click or hit C on the keyboard and hit the add-ons dashboard. And because this is an add-on that's an official add-on, you can get it to it directly from the add-on store. So clicking that blue button there, and then searching for Kuma is the easiest way. And you can see here it's a Home Assistant community add-on called Uptime Kuma. Self-monitoring tool like Uptime Robot. It's self-hosted, which makes it very nice. And it's very simple. You just install it as a normal add-on would be installed. Once it's installed, you can look at the documentation, and there's really nothing here to talk about. You can look at the configuration, and the only configuration option you have is to change the port that it's on. If you have something else running on port 3001 on your Home Assistant instance, you'll need to change this port because it'll make a remote connection to it. As always, you can look at the logs and see if there's anything of note in the logs. And currently I see nothing in the logs because we've not started it yet. So let's go back over here and click on Start. Give it a second to start up. And once you have it started up, you will see a Web UI option. And you can click on that to open the Web UI. When you first load it up, it's going to ask you to create an admin account. So we're going to call it me and give it a password. And we'll just create that account. And this is your first admin account. The interface is super easy to use. Right now we have no monitors. So we have nothing up or down, nothing in unknown or pause state. Before we add a monitor, let's go over to the settings and take a look at that. So under the settings page, you have a bunch of different options here. Under General, you have the time zone. You have Allow Indexing or Discourage Indexing. It's a locally hosted monitoring service, hopefully inside your network, so it doesn't really matter here, but I would discourage it anyway. Your entry page is the dashboard, and your primary base URL you can set by clicking the AutoGet. This is the IP address or domain or whatever you're coming from, and the port that'll go to. And if you're using this to monitor stream gaming servers, you will need a Stream API key. I'm not going to demonstrate that today, but it is interesting that it supports that. Over here under Appearance, you can choose your theme, light, dark, or auto. You can choose a theme for the heartbeat bar, or the theme where the heartbeat bar goes. And when you have monitors over here, you'll see that heartbeat bar. Notifications are available. You can set up notifications from here, or you can set it up once you add your first monitor. We'll come back to that in a minute. Reverse proxy. This is not currently supported, and under the documentation, you'll see that talked about. There's a monitor history that you can set the number of days for. 180 days right now is the default. You can also shrink the database using the vacuum option for SQLite. If your database is created after 1.10.0, auto vacuum is already enabled and this action is not needed. So any version greater than 1.10 of the Home Assistant Kuma is already doing this for you. And then of course you can clear all statistics if you want to do that. Under security, you can create two-factor authentication settings, or you can disable authorization entirely. And then proxies, we're not going to do anything with proxies today. You can back up all of your data through an export. And then just a little bit of information about what this version is, 1.17.1. And then you will have the option of showing the update if it's available and also checking for beta releases. Okay, with all of that out of the way and the settings the way we want them, let's go ahead and add our first monitor. And you have a whole bunch of different monitor types. This is really neat. You have HTTPS or HTTP, TC port, ping. You can do HTTP with a keyword. You can do DNS monitoring. You can do passive monitoring using push, Steam Game Server, MQTT, and SQL Server. Those are your options. We're going to start with an HTTP P monitor. And this is going to be my Home Assistant Blue, my primary instance of Home Assistant. I want to monitor that. And even though I'm using Nginx reverse proxy to monitor my Home Assistant instance, what I want to do here is I want to specify the IP address, because if the reverse proxy goes down, nothing's going to work. And so I want to make sure that I'm going directly to the source of my Home Assistant here. We can set a heartbeat interval, how often it checks, which is defaulted to 60 seconds. Retries, I'm going to set this more than one. Sometimes you have a network blip and you don't want to be notified immediately. This will retry every 60 seconds, 3 times before it sends an alert. And then, of course, the heartbeat retry interval as well. So checks every 60 seconds. If you want it to check 3 times every 60 seconds, you leave this at 60. If you want the retries to be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, then you can set this for that as well. And because I'm using an IP address rather than the fully qualified domain name, I need to go ahead and ignore TLS SSL certificates for the HTTPS. Otherwise, it's going to error out on me. You can also do a certificate expiry notification. So if you're monitoring a site that has a certificate on it, in the notifications, it will tell you that the certificate is going to expire on certain days ahead of time, and that's set in the notification parameters. You can also do an upside down mode. So if the status is upside down, the service is reachable, it will alert rather than being unreachable. And then if there's redirects involved to get from the point A to the URL, the final URL, it'll allow up to so many redirects, defaults to 10. Your accepted status codes, 200 through 299, are typically the OK status codes. And then you can tag it if you want to. And I'm going to go ahead and save this right now. So now we've added one monitor successfully. And now you can see here that we have, first of all, a pending. And what this means is it's not checking it properly. Typically, when you first install something, it's going to do a first check, and it's going to be green here. So let's just edit this and see what happened here. We need to put the port 8123. So let's put the port. You can specify the port here, and that will solve that problem. And now you can see that it's saved behind me there. And that is now green. Otherwise, we would have gotten an alert in just a minute. Now, you do notice that we have no notifications for this monitor. So the first thing I want to do now, or the next thing I want to do, is set up a notification. And this is really cool of this setup. It has up to 90 plus notifications for all these different types of services. I'm going to start with pushover, because I use that a lot for stuff. And I'll just give it a name, pushover alerts, or pushover alert. Now for pushover, you need a user key and you need an application token, and you set those up on the pushover site. If you're already using pushover for some other alerts, then you know how to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and supply the user key and the application token. Okay, so I've supplied the user key application token, and you can specify a device that you want the notifications to go to. Otherwise, if you want it to go to all devices, you can leave that blank. You can give it a message title. I'll just give it a Kuma alert for title. You can set your priority on your device, -2 all the way to +2. And then it says here, emergency priority 2 has default 30-second timeout between retries and will expire after 1 hour. And then for sound, we can just pick whatever sound we want to choose for that. Now you can also set it to be the default notification for all devices or monitors you add, and then you can apply it to all existing monitors. And then you can also send a test, and it should go out immediately. There's the test I just sent to my device, and we'll click on save. So now we have one notification for our HA Blue. Now you can add additional notifications to this as well. If I want to go and add a Discord notification, I can do that as well. And then you have to have a web URL or webhook URL from your Discord server if you're running a Discord server. And you just throw in your webhook URL from Discord, and then you can give it a bot display name. This is actually a bot on your Discord server. So I'll just leave it as Uptime Kuma. You can do a custom prefix message if you want to, and then you can again apply to all monitors. So I do have that ready to go, and we'll save it. And now you can see that I have multiple notifications for a single monitor. I don't know what the limit is on notifications here. I guess you could send it to a bunch of different places, but between pushover and Discord, that's going to be enough for me. Okay, so let's add another monitor just for the fun of it. So we'll click Add New Monitor. And this one, we're going to do a ping monitor. And I'm going to call this Camera 1. And the host name will be an IP address, 60 seconds, retries 3. And then everything else is the same. We'll give it a Discord and a pushover. And remember, since we set this as the default, the pushover alerts will automatically be added to all new monitors. Save that one. Now we have 2 monitors. And let me do one more just to show you a different type. So we'll add one more monitor, and this is going to be a DNS monitor. I run internal DNS servers within my network here, and I'm going to call this Blue DNS. That's my primary DNS. My host name. The host name is the name you want to look up on the DNS server, not the host name of the DNS server. So we can just look up google.com, and my resolver server is actually the local address of my DNS server. So we'll put that on here. Port would be 53 by default. Typically, that's what your DNS servers will run on. Resource record type, you can choose any of these lookup types. If you wanted to put a text record in your domain name and look that up in your local, one of your local domains, then you could do that. We'll just leave it as an A record for now. A record, heartbeat 60 seconds, retries. I'm going to leave that one for 0 now because we're going to play with that in a second. And then upside down, you can add tags. Okay, so now we have 3 different alerts here. What else can we do with Uptime Kuma? Well, you can add a status page. And by adding a status page, you can then create one of those fancy status pages that you see on some of the websites. I'm going to give it just a name, random name, status, or how about BC status? That's the name of my area here. And we'll give it a slug of BC status. And of course, you can only put in certain characters because it is your URL. Click on Next. And now we have a white page. And for those of you on a monitor or whatever, sorry, you've been blinded. Let's go ahead and switch to dark theme. And we have a couple options here. Create incident, add groups, or add monitors. Now, here's a cool thing you can do about this. You can add these monitors separately, or you can group them. So let's just say I want to add those all separately. I will just add each one of these, and you just find it and click on it, and it puts it in the list. You can add a custom footer if you want to, and you can add a description. And once you're done, you could do some custom CSS. You could do all kinds of stuff to make this page look how you want it to look. Click on Save, and now you have basically a status page. If you have an incident, you could actually come over here and create an incident, and you can choose the style. Let's say danger, outage, the TVs are broken. I don't know, just make something up, right? And you just post that, save it, and now if you go back to your status page, if there's a bunch of things here having outages, you can put a notice here of what that is. But let's take that off now so we can unpin that and save it, and now we have no more outages. So let me show you something else that's kind of cool about these status pages. But first, let me go back to the dashboard, add a new monitor. I'm going to add a second camera here, and it'll be ping. Call it camera 2. The host name is 172.16.1.27, I believe. And we can again do retries 3 and save that one. And now we have another camera added. So we have 2 cameras, a DNS and an HA Blue. Now we can go back over to our status page, and we can edit the status page, and we can actually add a group. And I can call this group cameras. And you can add monitors to the camera. You do that here, camera 2. Now these only can be a part of one group at a time. So I need to remove camera 1 from this group and add it to this one. And then if we save this, we now have our services in different groupings. So you could create groups based on what type of service it is, what room it is, where it's located, whatever you want to do. And so you can look at a glance different things and whether something's up or down or not. One other thing to note about this status page is, as best I can tell, it does not auto refresh. So you have to come over here and periodically refresh it. The dashboard does auto refresh. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut down. Actually, I'm going to add one more monitor here. Let's do one more DNS monitor. We'll call this backup DNS. Again, the host name is not the DNS server. The resolver is the DNS server. And we're going to leave this A in 60 seconds, 0 retries. So it'll go down immediately. So now we have all of those here. And by the way, when we were talking about settings earlier, and we looked at the appearance and you want to put the theme heartbeat where you want the heartbeat, you can go bottom here, or you can take the heartbeat off entirely. So it's your choice there on where you want the heartbeat. All right, so let's go back over to the dashboard. One of the things I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break this backup DNS. So I'm going to go back over to Home Assistant here. I'm going to go to the add-ons page and I'm going to shut down my second DNS server by stopping it. And now if we look at Uptime Kuma, we should see, and this is a history of statuses, by the way. This is not the current status. This is the current status of where everything is. So now we look at this and we watch the status over here. What we'll see is and let me get out of the way because I think it'll pop up here. Yep. So I got a connection refused from my DNS server, my backup DNS server. So you see now it's down. And also, you may have heard all of the notifications that just came in. Plus, if I go over to, which I probably didn't enable it. Yep, I didn't enable it. The default got enabled on the backup DNS, but it did not actually edit or enable this Discord. So any of these that you want to add these to, you need to make sure you turn on the non-default. All right, so those are all there. Now, I would have gotten a alert in Discord as well. So I can click on this. If you go to the status pages, they don't get automatically added to the status page either. And I did that wrong. Let me go to the status page. Here it is. Click it there. If I want to add another service, such as that one I just added, we'll go to Edit Status Page. And here's one of the things I've found about adding a group. I'm not sure why this is, but here's the monitor. If I click this here, it's going to add it to this cameras one. So what I have to do is move the group around, the services, before I add it, and it will add it to whatever services are at the top. You can also move these up and down. So if I want camera 1 above camera 2, I can do it that way. And then I can save the status page. And now I have my services and my cameras. You can see my backup DNS is 0% uptime. And you can also see here the red bars. So that's kind of neat about the status page. You can have this status page publicly made available. If you're running some services that other people want, you would just set up a link to the status page for people to view that. All right, go back to dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and turn back on my Home Assistant AdGuard, my backup DNS server. And in a moment, we should see that come back up over here. And hopefully, you will also see that come up down here as a notification. There it is. Now it's back up. All right, so one other thing I want to show you real quick is when you look at this, you also get a nice graph, a historical graph of what the service time was. So you can see the response time for a ping, your average ping, your uptime, and or for 24 hours and your 30-day uptime. You can also see that on these cameras. Anything you've got going here, you can get a pretty good response time graph as well as how many days it's been up. You'll also notice that you have cert expiration here. Now this is an old domain, expired 5/21, that's 68 days ago. Had I been going to a domain that was a fully qualified SSL domain rather than the IP address, it would have looked at the domain and told me how many days were left in that particular expiration. You can also click on this and get all of the relevant information about the domain that displays down here. If we want to turn on domain monitoring or certificate expiration notifications, we can click that here as well, and that will actually send you a notification whenever the SSL certificate is expiring. Under settings and under notifications, you can choose HTTPS monitors trigger notification when TLS certificates expire. They must be assigned to a monitor to function. So you can do 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. You can even do 1 day if you wanted to, and it would add it 1 day. So you can get all of these notifications up to the point where the certificate is about to expire, and you can take some action on that. All right, so that is Uptime Kuma. One final thing you can do here, let's say you're doing some maintenance on something and you want to pause the monitoring. You can click that pause, and it will pause it until you go in here and resume the monitoring. So that's Uptime Kuma. It's an add-on in Home Assistant. It works really well. And it's a simple way to monitor your services or even external services if you want to. Let me know if you have any questions down below in the comments. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Join the channel. Support me what I do if you like to do that as well. And I really appreciate everyone who watches my videos and helps support all of the stuff that I do here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.